So we're returning to a series called "The Questions That God Asks Us." And last time we had Jesus ask us a question: "What are you looking for?" And in that question, Jesus was inviting us to examine our desires, because in our desires, God places God's own desires, and through those desires, God calls us. That was one question, and today we're looking at another question that Jesus asks. He asks it to his disciples and to Peter and to us. And the question is, who do you say that I am? How would you answer that question this morning? Who do you say that Jesus is? Well, this is how it goes with Peter. Jesus, Peter, and the other disciples are in this small village called Bethsaida. And a blind person is brought to Jesus. And Jesus prays for him and heals him, but it happens in a bit of a strange way. Jesus lays his hands upon the eyes of the blind man and prays. And then asks him, "What do you see?" And the man says, "I see people, but they look like trees." If you see people that look like trees, you might be not seeing things clearly. And so Jesus places his hands upon the eyes of the man again and prays. And then the man says, now I see clearly. Now keep that scene in mind. It's going to be important, okay? Keep that in mind. So that happens in Bethsaida. And they walk north for a few miles, and they go to a new village called Caesarea Philippi. And Jesus pauses everybody, and he asks them a question. First question: who do the people say that I am? Well, some of them are saying that you're John the Baptist. Some of them are saying that you're Elijah, back from the dead, or one of the prophets from of old. It seems that Jesus is not easy to interpret. He's not easy to figure out. He's a complicated guy, and so the people have several different opinions about who he is. It might be that Jesus is kind of like the onion. Have you heard this figure of speech? Some people are like an onion. There's one layer, and then there's another layer, and then there's another layer. In fact, you might remember, not to be outdone by Pastor Matt and his cartoons, do you remember from Shrek, the scene? Watch it right now, if you would.
There's a lot more to ogres than people think.
Example?
Example? Okay, ogres are like onions.
They stink?
Yes. No.
Oh, they make you cry?
No.
Oh, you leave them out in the sun, they get all brown, start sprouting little white hairs.
No. Layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers? You get it. We both have layers.
Oh, you both have layers. Oh. You know, not everybody likes onions. Cake! Everybody loves cakes. Cakes have layers.
I don't care what everyone likes. For your information, there's a lot more to ogres than...
I love that scene. Eddie Murphy is absolutely brilliant in that scene. And okay, this is a stretch. Please forgive me if this offends you. But I could almost feel Jesus when some people saying Elijah. Some people saying you might be one of the prophets of John the Baptist. He's saying, I'm like an onion. I'm so hard to understand. Yeah, sometimes Jesus is hard to figure out. But Peter's got it. Peter's got it figured out. After the disappointment of the answers to the first question, Jesus asks the second question, and Jesus says, "Well, who do you say that I am?" And Peter says, "You are the Messiah." You're the one. You're God's chosen. And in Peter's mind, Messiah means, because this is what he's been taught since he's been a child, Messiah means that you're the one who's going to defeat our enemies. You're the one who's going to restore Israel to glory again. Boo, yah, wireless mic drop. Ding, 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 ding. Right answer. Messiah. And then Jesus begins to describe what it means to be the Messiah, the one, the chosen. And he says it means suffering, it means rejection, and it means the experience of injustice. And so Peter, who knows better than that, pulls Jesus aside on behalf of all of the disciples, say, now you know that the Messiah does not suffer. The Messiah wins. Jesus, you know that the Messiah is not rejected. The Messiah conquers. You know that the Messiah doesn't get injustice. The Messiah gives vengeance. Come on, onion Jesus. Get with the plan. And Jesus replies to Peter, get behind me, Satan, my adversary. Your mind is not in the right place. Now, I need you to notice this with me, please. See this with me. Jesus asked his first question, who do the people say that I am? And it's obvious that the people did not see Jesus clearly, right? And then Jesus asked Peter and the disciples, who do you say that I am? And it is obvious that although they got the title right, they did not clearly see the glory of Jesus. Both groups did not see. Both groups were blind. Remember the first story in Bethsaida and the blind man? To see Jesus clearly is apparently going to take some time. To see Jesus was going to take more than one miracle. To see the glory of Jesus would require more than getting titles right. To see Jesus was going to require an occasional rebuking. Now listen. The writer of this gospel, St. Mark, is telling you and me that it is common for us to not see Jesus clearly. Mark is telling us that it's going to take some time. Mark is telling us that we're going to need more than one healing if our eyes and imaginations are going to see. Even if we get the language right, it's going to take some rebuking before our minds get right, before we see the glory of Jesus. Now imagine this with me. All of you all over here on the left, look at all these poor souls over here on the right. Don't you know that these people are not seeing clearly? Right? Now all y'all people over here, have mercy. Look at all these people over here on my left. Don't you know that they are not seeing as clearly as they could? Now, everybody, do you realize how humble you have to be a Christian. How humble you have to be to realize that while I see that that person is not seeing things clearly, I myself am in need of some healing. If we take a deep breath and calm down for a moment, when Jesus asks us, "Who do you say that I am?" It's not just a test question. It's not just cross-examination. When Jesus asks us the question, we're sincerely being invited to know him more deeply, to go past the surface layers and to know him more clearly and deeply. When Jesus asks us the question, "Who do you say that I am?" we are being invited to take time with him. He gives us that. We're being invited to seek healing for our blind spots. We're being invited to get the words right and then to get them more right. We're being invited to receive a rebuke occasionally to get our minds in the right place. And so, dear ones, you hear him asking you this morning, don't you? You hear his invitation, don't you? You hear his question, "Who do you say that I am?" I'd like to invite you to do something with me this week. I'm going to do these things. You don't have to do them all, but I would invite you. I'm going to listen to the Gospel of Mark this week. It doesn't take long. I've got an app on my Bible. It's called on my phone. It's called the U version. You can download hundreds of versions of the Bible. You can even read them, listen to them. I'm going to do that with Mark's Gospel. And as I listen to it, I'm just going to be trying to answer the question of, who is Jesus? I'm also going to do this. This one's a little deep. It comes from a saint in the church, an old mystic by the name of Teresa of Avila. She wrote something that became a book called The Interior Castle. And she says this: "Fix your eyes on the crucified, and everything will become small to you." Fix your eyes on the crucified, and everything will become small to you. So this week, I'm going to use my prayerful imagination. I'm probably at times going to literally come before a cross, or in my imagination, I'm going to come before the cross, and I'm going to move my eyes from the pierced feet of Jesus to his pierced hands, to his pierced side, and to his eyes. And I'm going to let him ask me, "Who do you say that I am?" I'll bring my brokenness to the broken, and I'll answer the question. I'm also going to listen to Rich's song again. It's the cross that made the change. We are asked a simple but deeply profound question that might be the most important question. Who do you say that I am?